I've been working in nonprofit for over 20 years. Majority of that is in fundraising and development. I started as a coordinator and a manager, senior director, and at the chief level. So one thing I really like to bring to the work is just this understanding that everybody's role is very important because I've done all the roles and you really have to understand how your program works like a well-oiled machine. So one of my specialties is program development and operational efficiency and also individual giving. I'm currently in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've worked in Southern California, Central Texas, and of course now the Bay Area. And so, yeah, I'm just happy to be here. I recently started my own consulting company called Small Seeds Consulting, which really specializes in new and growing programs and programs in transition. So if you have if your program, for example, some of my clients have, their entire development program left for whatever reason, and now they're having to rebuild, or they got an influx of money and they really need to understand how to build out a development program. That's where I come in. So it's what I love doing. I'm so excited to be here. Planning is my jam. So I love that this is a planning webinar. And yeah, just real excited, and hopefully this can be helpful for everyone.
Yes, thank you so much, Candace. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll just go to the next slide here. Yeah. And just a little bit about who we are as a company, about Solutions Matter, LLC. So since our inception, we've helped over 300 nonprofits, which that alone is such an honor and so amazing. We love what we do. So whether that be helping nonprofits receive their 501c3 status, helping with their grant writing or donor identification, strategic planning, bookkeeping, web design, all of the things. That's what we do. We get to help the people that are helping the world and making changes, and that's so incredible. And so, yeah, we are the professionals that get to do that and get to help you advance your mission. So, yeah, that's just a little bit about who we are. And then about our founder, Sharon Jones. So Sharon has been in the business for over 30 plus years, and she has 30 plus years of experience of raising over $500 million across all different sectors. I say that Sharon is this perfect blend of both professional and personal, because she is going to help advance your mission and she's going to give you the tools that you need, but she's also going to care about you. She's going to care about your heart and what you're going through, and as you're navigating just all of the challenges that you face as you are starting a nonprofit, or as you're navigating trying to get new donors or board development. So yes, that's just a little bit about Sharon. Yeah, and so now, yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Candace, and she's just going to talk about the webinar overview and get started. So thanks, everybody, and we're looking forward to being on this webinar with you.
Absolutely. So here's what we're going to get into today. So we got through our introductions. This is a webinar about planning your development or creating a development plan for your program. And so we have put this into a few steps. So step one will be to look at your last year's performance, and we'll look at a sample performance assessment table. What I really like about these tools is that they're like I said, I feel like they're logical, they make sense. And I would say it's kind of just kind of takes the guesswork out of things. And step two, we'll look at defining your goals, strategies, tactics, owners, and timelines. And then we'll give you a one-year fundraising template, or there will be available a one-year fundraising template and some other helpful resources. So let's get into it. So first, a few things in the chat. This is a great way for us to kind of understand who's in the audience, who's in the crowd. So the first question is, how many of you actually have a fundraising plan for the year? You can say yes, no. yellow light, somewhere in the middle, that's fine too. So I'll give you just a few seconds to add in the chat if you have a fundraising plan or not. All right. And the second one is, how many of you find it difficult to plan and execute an annual fundraising plan? Just throw in the chat, some challenges that you've had, or what kind of gets in the way. I know personally when I was frontline fundraising, you can do everything to create a plan, and then an emergency comes up and you have to put everything else on hold for that emergency funding need that you have. And so that was one of my personal difficulties, was just like, okay, I have this great plan, but this emergency situation has come up and now it's thwarting everything. So your fundraising plan is really going to be your best case roadmap, with your clear goals and your team focus on what matters. And one thing that I also really like to share with folks and to offer is, I don't know about you, but I've worked in with a lot of boards that are very excited about the work. I'll use that language. They're very excited, enthusiastic. And so I think, having a plan is always a good way to show your board, or your other constituents, that we have this plan in place, you have this great idea, maybe something we can integrate into next year's plan. So it's also just a really good way to hold yourself accountable and really show your board and the powers that be, that you have your work cut out for you, and their awesome idea that might feel kind of random just doesn't quite fit into the plan. This is also a document that outlines your fundraising priorities, your goals and plans over a specific amount of time. It's usually about 12 months. And, even if you're on a fiscal calendar year, a lot of times it is, we put our plan whether or not sometimes, even if you're on a fiscal year, we tend to do this on a calendar year because donors don't think in fiscal year, they think in calendar year. And it includes your goals, your owner strategies, campaigns, events, and even a communication schedule. So this can be as comprehensive as it needs to be. There's a template that I use in my work, has, your fundraising plan, your stewardship plan, your revenue tracker. It's a lot of different things that can go into one comprehensive plan. But maybe that's not going to work for you. Maybe you just really need a simple outline for the year, that's not overcomplicated. And that's something that we can definitely help with as well. Our good old friend Benjamin Franklin: by failing to plan, you are planning to fail. I am a planner, so really speaks to me. I don't know if you can tell, I'm really juiced this morning about talking about planning. So just a quick reminder that when you're not planning, you're planning to fail. So fundraising, every fundraising plan is going to look a little bit different, but they all are going to have some of the same planning steps. So that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier, that whether or not your program is this multi-pronged, you have a lot of different fundraising efforts happening all at the same time. You have events, you have direct mail, you have everything. Or if you just, are kind of, some programs just, they drive all of their efforts towards one fundraising initiative, which is, this is another strategy. And so whether or not your strategy is having multiple asks throughout the year or just kind of driving towards one campaign, you need a plan. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you that you need a plan. So step one, we're going to reflect on last year's performance. So this is really important, especially if you're a new development officer and you're kind of just stepping into a role. Let's just do kind of a data dump and an information dump from the last year. You might even look at the last couple of years. Let's look at what worked, what didn't, maybe some new people that you met. Let's look at what are your strengths. This is just making me laugh because, I've had a lot of great, fun ideas, but they weren't necessarily great fundraising initiatives, right? So I could think of some things that I'm like, yeah, I remember that thing I did. I would take it off the calendar for next year, or actually this other thing that I think would be great to continue. So this can be as simple as and complex as you want. I really love like this kind of open-ended direction because for someone like me, for example, I'm much more of a visual learner. So this is one of those things where I just like to get a whiteboard or a big piece of paper on the wall and just write everything out, just brain dump everything out. And then, be sure and get your donor retention. And here's an easy kind of donor retention calculator that you can use. So you're going to look at your number of donors in your previous year over the current year and then multiply it by 100 and you'll get your donor retention rate. So that's just going to be something good to look at. You really want to be able to measure your donor retention year over year. And then some questions to consider. Which fundraising strategies gave us the best return on investment? One that I think of for myself, I did a little soccer tournament for a grassroots organization once. Super fun. We super fun. We'll just leave it there. What about your overall donor retention? So we have your donor retention calculator. You might want to look at donor retention, individuals versus corporate, or just, your different kinds of donors. You can segment those out in different ways. What percentage of first-time donors make a second gift? That's a great thing to know. We want to be able to capture those people so that they give again and don't just give once and say goodbye. Where do we get our best donors? It's so easy to get sucked into the low-hanging fruit with the donors who are nice and it's always just an easy time with them. But there could be some other ways that we have to think outside of the box or that might not be the easiest route to find where we get our best donors. Who are the most loyal donors? Let's talk about that. Your folks that are at every event. You can call them for a favor. I have worked in places where I've asked for, gift cards for clients, that kind of thing. There are just some people who they just want to do whatever they can. What's the average age of the donors? I think getting also all kinds of demographic information can really help because then you're crafting your program around what your donor base looks like, as opposed to saying, I really want to do this specific thing, and maybe no donors are interested in that thing. So I've worked at places, or I have seen mission-based organizations that have like their donors are more content focused. They really want to hear the stories. They really want to know the impact of their work. And other places that are kind of more, party focused, which is also okay. Party with a purpose is great. The point is you need to know your donors so that you can develop your program around who they are. And where is the greatest opportunity to grow revenue? I hear this a lot, working with organizations that maybe they got a new influx of funding, or they just know that they have a lot of prospective donors and they want to be able, it's just like an untapped resource, right? So where's the biggest opportunity to grow? And make sure that that's a realistic one, because it can feel exciting. Again, I'm in the Bay Area. It can feel exciting to say, oh, we're going to ask Google and, Facebook and all of these tech companies that are out here. But is that really the greatest opportunity? So that's a good question to ask yourself. This is a great exercise for maybe a team retreat or a team planning session before the start of your year. Just, order lunch, get these questions together, just throw it up on the wall, and go from there. So this is just a simple table to clarify, to assess your past performances and clarify your goals. I really like the way that Sharon has set this up, because again, this is kind of can help guide your conversation with your team, with your CEO, with your board. And we look at our revenue sources here. So let's start here on our left-hand side is our revenue sources. And then we have a series of data points across the top. So the revenue sources on this chart are pretty standard, although, if you have, not the be all end all, I'm sure you have different kinds of revenue. So your annual fund, which is really pretty much anything but your major gifts and pretty much anything outside of the other categories, right? So not a major gift, not a grant, not a corporate sponsorship, not from event, not in kind or earned income, let's say. You have your major gifts, your grants, corporate sponsorships, events, and other. So the conversation, that we have with these categories at the top, what was the last year projected goal and how much was actually raised? Hopefully, this is something you're tracking year round. You have a revenue tracker that you update, monthly or weekly, to show how you're doing with your fundraising progress. So hopefully, this is information that you already have, and you think about what worked. So I love this, the annual fund, Giving Tuesday, or what worked was having more face-to-face visits, the multi-year grants. Yes, that always is a good plan, right? And so, there's these giving days. When I lived in Austin, they had, Amplify Austin, and every I think I remember hearing they're all over the country, right? These like national and or these days of giving that, for a specific place. That's something that, thinking about putting this in your plan if that worked. And then what we need to improve. So this isn't a super quantitative chart, which is what I really like because it really just is about, sometimes I think we overcomplicate fundraising. At the end of the day, we're asking people to support something that is just really important, and I, just to say, we're doing great work for kids and it makes a lot of sense for you to invest in them. So let's do it. So what are some things that we need to improve? Moves managed for CRM for major gifts. These are examples, but they're real life examples. For grants, maybe you need to improve on expanding your scope and meeting your goal. The corporate sponsorships, the cultivation, these are just some areas that we've seen that people need, they really want to improve in. And of course, it never feels like enough time in the day. But this is just like a great conversation starter. And then how to do next year. So this is great too. So let's say for major gifts, we're talking about what worked was the face-to-face, so now that we know those face-to-face visits are working, we really want to be able to systematize it and put it in our CRM and set up our moves management. So then the next step might be to get a new CRM. So this really kind of shows you like, okay, I really didn't, I really hadn't lined it up like this before. And it just is kind of helpful to do this. This is something you can do with your board at a board retreat, with your team at a team retreat, in a meeting with your CEO. This is just such a great exercise. And then there is a template that you can fill in. We're going to give you the links to be able to have access to these. I hope you'll use it. So we've looked at the past, we've assessed our past and what worked over the last year and what didn't. And number two is to define your goals. And so the next step is looking to the future. What are your goals, strategies, tactics, owners, and timelines? What's going to happen this next year? Writing down your goals is going to encourage you to get clear on your objectives and identify the tasks and timeline needed to complete them. And I think, like I said, everybody's different. You should really find a plan that works for you or a way that works for you. For me, I really need to see things in a full year. So if that's what you need to do, is to create a calendar for yourself. I think that's great. You should do that. That's what I do. And then you want to set yourself up for success by saying, what can we reasonably achieve with our current tools and capacity? How many of you have had somebody either on your team or a board member that just had some really outrageous goal and not really sure that you had the capacity to actually, reach that, right? If I had more hands, I would raise them. So we have to really look logically at, what can we achieve? What's our capacity and what can we do with our current tools? Can we boost revenue by investing in fundraising and infrastructure? But for example, by upgrading our donor base or hiring a copywriter, what seems pressing? Some stuff is not as exciting. Getting a new CRM is not nearly as exciting as this, a new donor engagement event that you want to have, something like that. It's not as exciting, but it's all necessary. And then, something that we see often that is overlooked but very critical is to specify, who's responsible for what. individuals, teams, departments who are responsible and integrate those fundraising plan goals. And you can integrate those goals into your annual performance reviews in order to keep people accountable. I think this piece is really critical and is very critical to have that relationship with other folks on your in your organization and build that trust so that, for example, let's say one of your goals is to integrate more testimonies or storytelling or client stories. What is the strategy for approaching, your program staff that work with these clients, working with these clients, having the stories, really do justice and really honor the experience that you're trying to share. So I think, so it's one thing to assign ownership to people, and it's another thing to make sure those relationships are strong so that you can really assign that you can get people involved that you need to, because fundraising is everybody's job, as we know. And the best goals are Smarty goals. And I say Smarty because one, I've seen a different version of this that adds IE at the end for inclusion and equitable. So what are the best, and I'm sure, SMART goals, I'm sure we've all seen some variation of this, but our best goals are SMART. So they are specific. It's, whether it's a qualitative or quantitative goal, it's specific. They are measurable. You can say, we're going to send out 100 mailers for this campaign, and we're going to track how many come back through the mail. We're going to send some through email and see what does better. So you want to measure it. They're attainable. Again, fundraising can be very exciting, and knowing that you're raising money for a cause or mission that is important or dear to your heart is critical. But you want to make sure you're not shooting for the moon and then landing still on Earth, right? You want to shoot for the moon and then get to the stars. So you want to make sure that these are attainable goals, that they're relevant. I've definitely seen programs that they want to integrate some kind of initiative that really just doesn't make sense to the mission, right? We always want to go back to mission. And they're time bound. If you have a goal that is a never-ending goal, you might take a never-ending time to achieve those goals. So you want to be sure that they're time bound. The inclusive part, so like I said, there's another part of this that's Smarty. The inclusive part, let's talk about, diversifying the culture or making sure that your fundraising efforts are culturally relevant to the community that you're living in. And that could be anything. That could be you live in a close to a retirement community. That could mean you live to a large population of immigrants from a certain country. That could mean that you're in rural America, and that's just a very different culture than urban, right? So you want to make sure that you are as inclusive as possible in your goals as well, and equitable. This is, equity goals are so important. And so an example of that could be to, cultivate your relationships at every level. And I think we're moving towards this spot in fundraising. I think traditional fundraising really values and upholds donors at the top, and they can kind of have a big say. And that is, some places still do that. And that is definitely kind of more traditional fundraising. Definitely think we're moving in the field towards a place where we really want to engage donors at all levels. So whether they give $10 or 10,000, they are engaged at all their different levels, and they have access to events and different efforts that we might have. So think about the inclusivity and the equitable piece with these goals. And here's a few examples. Um, you know, um, like recruiting board development committee volunteers to join the development committee by a certain date, or boosting your overall retention by 5%. And so you can see there's a lot of numbers there. And then especially something like a 5% or 20%, if you think you can get there, those are great attainable goals. And this is all very relevant. So those are just some examples of how you can set up your goals. So this is an example of a fundraising plan. And again, I really do like this structure because it feels very, very, kind of simple and really laid out and approachable. The column that would get me going is the timeline progress, because I like to have things in order of in chronological order. So I would probably, if I was using this form, I would probably sort by the timeline. And so are looking at our goal for the year. And that can be, what we're going to get to that. What is the strategy to achieve that goal? And what would the outcome be? What's the plan to get there? Right? What's the expense? What's the needs? Does it need to be approved by your CEO? Do you need an extra $5,000 in your budget for this? Who is the owner? Remember, important, we're talking about ownership. So who's the owner of this specific goal? What's the timeline? My favorite. And then any notes that you might need. Something that I have done as well is, this is really an overview. You can insert links to different documents in this. So let's say you have to create a little bit more of an extensive plan for one of your goals. Just link it to a plan so that, it's all kind of accessible in the same area. But what I really like about this is that there are, I like that the goals are both qualitative and quantitative. So you have something like, increase your overall donated revenue by 20%. Then you also have a little bit more of a less monetary goal or less numeric goal of using technology to reach our fundraising goals. Some goals you might have too is to build a team culture. That's not necessarily something that's super measurable, but that's a goal that you can have. Or increasing your donor retention, right? That's another percentage you can measurable goal. So let's just go through a couple of these and hopefully this will help you kind of understand how to use this form. So let's start with the first one. The goal is to use technology to reach our fundraising goals. So definitely see this a lot, right? And especially in this day where we're definitely moving a lot more towards technology forward world that we live in. Um, the outcome would be that you would have to purchase a new CRM, communicate and fundraise more effectively with donors. That's what would happen if you were able to achieve your goals, right? You'd be able to reach donors on different platforms. You have a higher click-through rate on your emails, that kind of thing. What's the plan to get us there? Recruit a CRM committee. Sorry, I'm a little key staff and board chair. Complete list of CRM needs across departments. So these are, what are the things that we need to really build the case for getting a new CRM, and what is our plan to get there? What is the expense? This is definitely one that is, has a price tag attached to it. Not every goal necessarily does, but this one definitely does. Who's going to own that? That's not, it's something like purchasing a CRM is, a lot of times the ownership is with your development staff, but the final decision will sit with your CEO, right? So we really need to know who all the key players are and all of your goals. What's the timeline? Let's look at this timeline. Purchase and implement by the end of June. And make sure your timeline reflects how much time is actually going to take, right? Because something like a CRM, that can be a really big undertaking. Something else might be a goal that you can complete in a couple of weeks. And any notes. Maybe this happened maybe you figured out some suggestions based on your conversations with different programs and what they need for a CRM. So look for a system that has a built-in retention and engagement metrics. That's definitely, just kind of like a FYI reminder to ourselves, which I think is great. I love CRMs that have built-in technology like that. And then if we look at something a little bit more specific in terms of numbers, let's just go to this last one, increasing overall donated revenue by 20%. So that's a great overall program goal that you want to see your revenue increase by 20% from the last year. What's a strategy? or an outcome. Upgrade your major gift donor giving portfolio, secure new corporate don't sponsors, foundation grants, and government grants. And so this is what would kind of like how would we know that we're successful in this goal? These things have happened. What is a plan? Leverage a new CRM. I like how this plan all connects together. Moves management capabilities to ensure face-to-face donor visits. So we're wanting to increase our overall goal. How do we get there? The more face-to-face we have, the better, right? And any expenses, hiring outside grant writer. That's definite. Let's think about like all the different areas that you could, the different things that you might need to increase your goals. So hiring could be one of them. Setting specific time on the calendar for, let's say moves management or corporate sponsorship. We're going to have our corporate sponsorship, bi-weekly meeting to talk about our progress on that. Those are, what are the needs? Or we need some more lunch money for taking donors out, right? We need more lunch money. That might be an expense. Who owns it, what's the timeline, and any notes. So I definitely took a lot more time on this slide because I really wanted to show just how easy it is to use, and also the continuity of it. And so this is also one of those things where, if I were using this plan, I would probably have it connected to different, more detailed plans. Something like increasing your revenue that might be, you might want to link that to another document that has a lot more detail to it if you want. And this is something that will be accessible to you as well. So we will have our free downloadable resources. I think we can drop that in the chat for you, but it will include a sample 1-year fundraising plan, a sample calendar, and sample know your numbers. So I would just say use these resources, make them work for you. And Grace is going to go through more what are some possible next steps after we're done here. But I would just say anything with free on it, if it's free or on sale, like you're gonna get my attention. So I would say download these and use them. Are there any questions? And I'm not, Grace, I would love your help with fielding some of these questions from the chat, as I see that there are some.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would love I would love your help with this here.
Yes. So we've just been talking about, we've got different individuals where they have used SMART goals before. We've got people where the chart and the graph is something completely new to them, but I was just letting them know that if there were any questions, anything specific, I mean, this is a free time to ask questions, and we love questions. So whether you're comfortable, if you want to unmute or ask a question in the chat, please let us know. And if you're not comfortable right now, feel free. You can ask us questions in our emails, or you can book a discovery call with us. But yeah, we'll just give it a couple of minutes and just see if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
So somebody asked about, you won't receive the PowerPoint, but you should receive the templates, right?
I believe so. I'll have to double check with Sharon. I'm not sure um, if we will get the slides or not. I thought so, but we'll double check and just make sure, just so that we can, because I want to make sure that we are doing the right thing. So either way, if you have questions about this and you want some help or would like to talk about it in more detail, like I said before, you can schedule a call with us and we can help you with this resource or point you in a direction. Or yeah, so just let us know. There's also several templates also online too. But for now, let's talk about yeah, so fundraising execution. Fundraising is an art and a science, and we've mastered both. And I truly believe that. But with this package that we're talking about, you gain a dedicated team of experts who will handle every aspect of fundraising, from meticulous research and donor cultivation to securing major gifts and grants. Consider it's your all-in-one solution for sustainable financial growth. And look, I know it's at the end of a webinar and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear about something you're trying. We truly, like I said, we're so excited to have been doing this webinar and give you the resources that we give you in this teaching. But we also want to help you. We want to help you in a more sustainable way and long term. And we would love to talk with you. So yeah, but the deliverables specifically, it's a market study and donor wealth screening to pinpoint high potential prospects, identification of diverse funding streams tailored to your specific mission, direct outreach and engagement with strategic partners and sponsors, ongoing support and consultation to maximize fundraising success. And that investment is 5,500. And then for specifically the board empowerment, I love this package as well, because if you're not sure yet and you're like, but I know that we've got some stuff with our board going on and I feel like we should go there. I love the work that we get to do with boards. And I think that it's one of my favorite things, because I think that, yeah, board members carry the heart behind a lot of the organization and can unlock so much potential. So, but imagine a board that's not just informed, but inspired to drive your mission forward. So a half-day workshop. This is ideal for a focused introduction to board roles and responsibilities, and going in depth with that. But a full-day workshop is a deeper dive, and it's actually equipping your board with advanced fundraising strategies and techniques. So they're not only going to know what their responsibilities are, but they're going to have techniques and strategies so that they can be doing those asks when they're out in the community. But the deliverables are comprehensive board training, and it equips your board members with the knowledge and tools to fulfill their board and their roles effectively, fostering a culture of engagement and functionality, and fundraising ownership. So like I said before, we have half day or full day options, which I think is really amazing. And there's also customized board manual and essential resources, downloadable worksheets and templates. And the investment for a half day workshop is $10,500 and a full day workshop is $18,500. So yeah, that's just a little bit about that board training. But specifically for our next webinar, we have Unlocking Corporate Cash Flow. So it's 5 steps to attract corporate sponsorships. And we have a corporate sponsorship campaign workbook that you will be getting for this. So please mark it on your calendars. Be looking for the link in the Eventbrite. But yeah, if you specifically are wanting to know more information, whether that be about our webinars, whether that be about any of the packages I spoke about earlier, or any other packages, we can cater to you, and we have other packages and solutions. We truly want to help you find your solution, hence the name, because your solutions do matter and we want to help you. So yeah, and then I think the next slide is also, yeah, we have another one, which, like I said before, this is going to be a great webinar, but it's get your board on board. So this is August 30th. So these are next week. So please, 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 but learn how to empower your board members to become fundraising superheroes. So yeah, but look for the link to that. And yeah, and then I think the next slide is just talking, like I said before, if you want to, let me put that link in the chat so that you can just, if you do want to book a discovery call, because like I said, we truly, even if it's just getting some more clarity of, if you can't use our, services right now, but it's in the future thing, let us help you. That's the worst thing that happens, is that you have a conversation with us. And so, yes. All right. So there is
I love
that.
that that's the worst part, is that you can have a conversation.
Yeah, that's what's the worst thing
Scenario,
that
we
happened?
become friends. Looks like we
Yeah.
did have a question about we're in the third quarter of the year. Is it too late to plan for 2024?
Oh,
My personal feeling is that it's not too late to plan for 2024. I think the fourth quarter of the year is a great time to start to think about what you want your next year to look like. And this is actually a great time to do kind of a what's the plan for the rest of the year. Um, this is typically gala season. There's a lot of galas in the last couple of months of the year, and then the year-end campaign. So there are still some major fundraising efforts that are happening between now and the end of the year for just about every organization. So 100%, this is absolutely not too late to plan for something like that. Looking at your overall arc of your year, I would just, my feeling is you're going to use this time to really plant the seeds of how you want to start to plan out. And it's not too late at all to start to plan out what you want for 2025. I used to do this. I used to have a sticky note to myself that would say, okay, goals for the next year, like, create a system for this one thing, or, this employee really wants professional development. So let's make sure that they get what they need so they can better do their job. Like I would just kind of write my sticky note so that when it came time to planning for the next year, I could just integrate those things and not forget. Because if I don't write it down or if it doesn't go on the calendar, it's not happening. So I definitely don't think it's too late. I hope I answered that question.
I
Um,
don't think it's too late either. I think especially if you're thinking about think about the holidays, just like you have to plan and schedule things for your family. It's not like you're planning that out all the way in June. But don't get me wrong, if you want to start at the beginning of the year, we highly recommend that. But it's not too late to make plans. And especially you have to think about Giving Tuesday. And yeah, just the holiday season in general is a great time to really execute fundraising plans and development plans because I think that this is a time where people are thinking about giving,
yeah,
especially. So yeah.
definitely. Definitely.
Well, thank you guys so much. I don't think that there's any more questions. But yeah, thank you. And here are our contact informations and our website and our phone number. So we would love to speak with you. And I just want to thank Candace for fearlessly leading us today and just her time. And we're just so grateful. And thank you all for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Grace.
Yeah. Well, everybody have a great day. And yeah, thanks so much.